What's up, Orange Blood viewers? I'm Keenan Womack. I'll be posting more video content online on the OB YouTube channel. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Today, I'm bringing on a special guest, Mr. David Sisk, a former EYBL coach and now is recruiting writer for Rivals covering Kentucky and North Carolina. That's correct?
Yes, sir. That's correct.
All right. And formerly covered Minnesota's Golden Gophers basketball program, which is why we're here today to talk about Mr. Marcus Carr. So, David, welcome to the program, man.
Well, I appreciate you having me, man. You got in touch with me earlier today, and I appreciate that. I've always wanted to do this, so did I do it right?
That's it. You got it right.
Yeah, all right.
All righty, brother. So I've got a few questions for you regarding Marcus Carr. So how long have you been aware of Marcus Carr, like high school, AAU?
Besides Minnesota, I also covered Vanderbilt at the same time. And, of course, I guess you could tell by my accent, probably nobody's surprised that I covered Minnesota. But at first, I covered him through Vanderbilt. And I tell you how far back it goes. Kevin Stallings was still the head coach at Vanderbilt when they were recruiting him. So that's how long, he's been around. You've got to remember, he started out at Pitt. He took a redshirt year. Then he was 2 years at Minnesota. So, he's actually his fifth college season fifth year in college coming up. But he was in between his junior and his senior year. And Vanderbilt was recruiting him, spoke to his dad at that time, and I still remember it. So we're talking, like I said, I think this might have been 2016, 17. It's been a while back. And I still remember the conversation. It was one of the most unique ones that I've ever had because they were from Canada, and his dad just couldn't understand. He was like, okay, why are we doing it? I'll do an interview, but exactly what's it for? Why are we doing it? I try to explain to him, there's fans here that follow Vanderbilt who will be interested in him and want to know about him because they're recruiting him. And it just blew his mind that people would be interested. And then, like I said, they never could kind of wrap their arms around that. So they weren't used to this, I guess, sports in the United States. I try to explain to him, I guess it's like hockey in Canada. And then afterwards, he said, could I see the interview before you publish it? And I said, sure. And you know how it's going to be. And they're going to say, oh, take this out. I don't want you to say this. I don't want you to say that. You kind of know how it goes.
Right.
And he sent me a text back and he said, piqued that their interest should be Piqued. And he corrected me on the word on the spelling. And that was it. He didn't care what was wrote. He was looking at the grammatical part. Very,
That's
very
so
intelligent. The thing that stuck out to me, very, very intelligent family. Very intelligent. So, it's no surprise that a place like Vanderbilt was recruiting him, and then he ends up at a place like Texas, who's a public Ivy. Just really smart kid, smart family, comes from a good background.
Yeah, he did a media availability on Tuesday, and it was very obvious that he's a super smart kid. So
and I would
his
say
play
this
style is not surprising.
And I would say this too, I'm sure covering him from a media standpoint, I know over on the North Carolina side, we've had Dawson Garcia and Brady Manick, who was Oklahoma, and those guys doing it. They're savvy at this. They've been through it. And like I said, he's had 4 to 5 years of interviews, at Pitt and at Minnesota. So not only intelligent kid, but he's been through the interview processes before.
Awesome. So thank you for all that background, man. I didn't realize you had so much history with them. That's very interesting. So thank you for your insight. So as you just said, Marcus Carr spent his freshman year at Pitt. He played 2 seasons at Minnesota and most recently transferred to Austin to play for Chris Beard, amongst a crop of very talented transfers as well. So first I wanted to ask sort of, how do you think Carr fits into the motion offense that Chris Beard runs? He has prototypical guard skills and he can score at like an elite level. But what do you think he brings specifically to that offense?
He is what I would call a scoring point guard. And that's going to be the thing. I actually went back today and spoke to a couple of assistant coaches in the Big Ten and asked how they scouted for him. When I knew we were going to be on the show, I just wanted to make sure what I was saying was correct. So I went back and talked to them. And the thing is, like I said, he's ball centric. The ball's in his hands a lot. And at Minnesota, he was at a spot where it was predominantly in his hands because the other guards that they had there just weren't guys who could set the table. They weren't guys who create. You had catch and shoot guards, and that's what you had. So he was asked to do a lot. The big thing is, in fact, one coach told me, he said anytime he came off a ball screen, he was an automatic double team. There were no switches. There were no going under.
Right.
We doubled him. And I think a lot of times they didn't respect maybe the ones around him enough. The big thing for me for Carr, and this is going to be the question, and it's not necessarily what he brings, it's how he adjusts. The system's going to be different. Minnesota ran more continuity, but there were a lot of sets. Now, he came a lot off the ball screen and then tried to create there. But he just didn't have as much around him. So the question's going to be from the point guard spot, how does he transition to a team with more talent and with more players around him that can put the ball in the basket than what he's ever played with before or he's ever been used to? Like I said, he doesn't have the reputation as a guy who is a tremendous passer. But if you look at his stats, he averages 5, 6, 7 assists a game. He has a lot of assists. He also has a lot of turnovers, but his career assist to turnover ratio is right at 2-1. The thing is, he's got the ball in his hand so much that he has a lot of turnovers. He has a lot of assists. His shooting, he had games, he runs kind of hot and cold. He's had some big, he's averaging well into the teens, 15, 16 a game. I remember some games when I covered him against big teams, Ohio State, Michigan State, teams like that where he broke out. I remember a 35-point game. I think it was against Ohio State. He torched Purdue and had huge scoring games. But if you look at his career shooting stats, his three-point was right around 33%. His total field goal percentage is high 30s, low 40s. It's not efficient. But like I said, it came from so much defensive emphasis on him where the ball was in his hands so much. So it's not going to be in his hands as much at Texas. So how does he adapt to a situation where he doesn't have to do all of this? So that's the big question in my mind.
Right. Yeah. No, I was going to actually ask the question about his efficiency, but you really covered it because he doesn't have the most efficient numbers, but what he sort of was dealing with was he had to do everything on offense. He had to take a lot of bad shots at the end of the shot clock, things like that. He wasn't surrounded by guys who could shoot. I was actually pull up a stat. Given the 3-point percentages for Minnesota last year, Texas has 4 guys who would have shot higher than anybody at Minnesota shot from 3 last year. And that's not even including their freshman recruit, Jalen Tyson, who shot 45% from 3. So he's going to have a lot more weapons around him. So I think his assist numbers might even go up, which is crazy to think about because he averaged almost 5 last year per game to 2.3 turnovers, like you said. And he had a very high usage percentage. He was around 28, 29% last year. And if you compare that to somebody like I brought up Cade Cunningham, who had a similar usage percentage last year at Oklahoma State, and he had 4 turnovers per game. So it's kind of an indication that Marcus Carr is a pretty good distributor as far as that goes, because like you said, he has a very good assist to turnover ratio. And it's very impressive for a guy who had the ball in his hands as much as he did.
And if you look at his minutes, I remember 2 years ago when I covered him, one thing kept going through my mind is, will he eventually wear down? Because, coaches do not want their guys to play 40 minutes a game, 39 minutes. He was averaging, if you look at his total minutes per play, I don't know how it went last year, But 2 years ago, he was up, gosh, like probably in the top 10 of individual players in the country out of thousands who were playing the most minutes per game. I mean, he was right at 39 minutes a game. He never came out.
Crazy.
And one thing that they had problems with was they really didn't have another ball handler.
Right.
I know that was the case 2 years ago. They didn't have anybody else could play point guard. They were trying to adapt a shooting guard to that. So, I mean, he not only was it because they had to have him out there because of production, they had him out there because basically nobody else could dribble the ball and pass it.
Yep, that's pretty much where I got to. And Chris Beard in a media availability earlier this week basically said, because he talks about like kind of positionless basketball, especially in the motion offense that he likes to run, that he's been running. Anybody who's a guard is somebody who can dribble, pass, and shoot. Everybody else is a forward. That's what Bobby Knight used to say. And so I think that was the case in Minnesota, where he was really the focal point of the offense on any given possession. They're gunning for him. He's the guy that has to make the play. He's the guy that has to take. I mean, he averaged 16 shots per game last year almost. I mean, that's just crazy. Like, he's not going to have to shoot nearly as much on the Texas team, which has really, a lot of talented players coming in through the transfer portal this year. I mean, they brought in 7 transfers. So he's going to still get a lot of minutes. He's going to be the starting guard on this team, starting point guard. And, it's a good backcourt because Texas brings back Andrew Jones and Courtney Ramey, who were both pretty solid, especially Ramey from 3, who shot almost 41% last year. So he's got guys around him who can shoot. It's going to be a matter of how much he wants to be shooting the ball. And he's still, I think, going to be the guy that they go to in late game situations when they really need a bucket. But I do agree with the fact that he's going to have way more talent around him. He's not going to be nearly as, I don't know how you say it. Like, he's not going to be nearly in the situation that he was in at Minnesota, where he is the only guy who can really score the ball.
In the motion offense, there's a sample size in his first year with Pitt. And we're going all the way back to 2017-18 when Kevin Stallings coach. Kevin Stallings ran the offensive set, what was called, when he was at Vanderbilt, it was called Princeton South. So they ran, he was an extremely good X's and O's coach. One of the old school guys, really, really, he was not going to get out foxed when it came to strategic moves. But it didn't work at Pitt. That was a really, man, they just bottomed out. He was basically, Kevin beat the posse out at Vanderbilt, basically. And it was a very strange hire at Pitt, and it didn't work. And they had not only had Marcus, but they had Cam Johnson, who transferred from Pitt to North Carolina and was an NBA draft pick.
Yep.
But it was a miserable season that year. So there were some good players on that team. The record didn't show it, but he was used to running motion with that team, so he has seen it before. One thing I bring up, and I apologize, there's a dog barking in the background upstairs. That means that family's eating dinner upstairs. So anyway,
I won't keep it too much longer.
No, you're good. I'm good. That means all that means is the dog wants table scraps. But defense is a thing he's been criticized for, that he was not a strong defender at Minnesota. Could be called a weakness of his game. Chris Beard, I don't think is going to tolerate that. I've really enjoyed watching his teams at Texas Tech. Some of the things that they've done, forcing the ball sideline, baseline,
icing ball screens.
Icing ball screens, the bigs jumping out of the lane, the trap, the baseline drive. Yep. The stuff that he does is everybody knows about. I mean, his defensive tendencies and principles that he coaches with. Now, I used to really enjoy comparing what he does with what Scott Drew does at Baylor.
Yeah, the no middle.
Yeah. So those things are they're well known. So he has the reputation of a great, not a good, but a great defensive. And I think he's a great. I'm a Chris Beard guy, man. I mean, through and through. I loved his teams. I love how he coaches. I want to see him. I like Bobby Knight. I want to see him do well there. And but you know, he's going to have to play defense. I think he's been in a situation before where he really didn't have to. He knew he was going to be on the court whether he guarded anybody or not. And I don't know that one thing with that many good players out on the court, Beard may not give him a lot of slack. You know, it may be a deal. Hey, if you don't defend, that's fine. We got guys over here that will. So, you know, going to Texas and playing for Beard may be the best thing overall Marcus Carr's game to help him.
Yeah, and so I had a question as well for you about Marcus Carr. What do you think about his odds as a sort of NBA project of some sort of prospective future in the National Basketball Association?
Well, he not only tested the waters this past spring and summer, he did the year before as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is he tried it twice. He came out both times, did not get the feedback. I wasn't sure that he would come back this time, but he basically got the same feedback that he did previously. But I kind of felt, even with him being from Canada, that maybe the international game might appeal to him. That, you know, you can go to Europe and make good money and play over there for a number of years and you're set. But he wanted to try, you know, I think he wants to come back and try the college route again and go for it. I mean, he could have possibly got a two-way contract with the G League, but I know I really follow Jonathan Gavani's draft lottery is mock drafts, but also his top 100, something I've got to watch quite a bit. And, you know, Carr was on down the list a little bit, so it wasn't like there were only two or three guys in front of him and he almost got in. There were a lot. So, you know, there was no indication from what we saw last spring and summer that he was going to get drafted. So, you know, I think there are a lot of things. What do they want to look for? I think efficiency is a big one. I think, you know, is he a point guard at the next level? Is he a two guard? Well, if he's a two guard, he's going to have to bring the 3-point shooting numbers up. If he's a point guard, he's going to have to show that he can run a team without the turnovers. He's also going to have to defend. That's why I said I think Chris Beard's good for him, because I think he's got a lot to improve on. He's a very good college player, but there's so many good college players out there that if he wants to get drafted, there are weaknesses in his game that I would say are more inefficiencies rather than lack of talent. So now, you know, he needs to cut those turnovers down from 2.8 to maybe 1 to 1.5. Keep that assist ratio. So that assist ratio needs to go maybe from 2 to 1 up to 3 to 1, maybe even 4 to 1. 3-point percentage. Can he get that up maybe from 33? I think to show that he can play on that next level, he needs to get his 3-point shooting up to close to 40%. So go from 33% to 40%. Get your overall field goal percentage up from low 40s to low 50s. So I think there's some things that are tangible that you can see, even though just on the stat line, that if he can make those improvements, he becomes more attractive to an NBA organization. And then I just think being able to play defense, because in today's game in NBA, man, if they put you in ball screen situations and things like that so much, and isolation, and if you can't if you can't stay in front of a guard in the NBA, I mean, you've got no chance of playing.
No, I totally agree. Yeah, that's really good information. I think defensively, that's definitely an area he can improve in. I do think that playing for Chris Beard is going to be a crash course in learning how to play defense. I mean, there's just no excuses with him. Like, he's all about, you know, all out effort on the defensive end, but also technique. You know, it's not just that. Like, there's things he needs to learn how to do better. And I think Beard is probably the guy to do that. So I only got one more question for you, man. So he's sort of known, Marcus Carr is, for his clutch shooting, right? He's hit big shots in big games. He plays up to his competition. Do you think that sort of killer instinct is something that can translate for him in this offense and make him like probably, I think, maybe the star of the team? And that's really saying something, because you got guys like Trey Mitchell, Timmy Allen. I mean, that's a talented roster, but do you think he could be like the leader, the alpha on this team?
I think it might be important that he's not the star. I think he needs to fit more. If he, in my opinion, from the way he's played in the past, if he tries to be the man or be the star, does that mean he's still ball centric? Does that mean he's shooting in bulk? Because he doesn't need to do that, because the other talent's there. I would rather see him become more efficient and blend in. I would rather see him instead. How many shots did you say he took per game last year?
15.6.
Okay, so let's say instead of averaging 17 points a game and taking 15.6 shots, how about averaging 14 a game and taking 10 shots? You know, and
right.
So I and that makes those better around him. He is not, I promise you this, if he does, let's say he did get drafted, a kid that's already tested it twice, who's in his 5th year, he's not going to go from outside the top 100 to a lottery pick under any circumstances. I mean, That's not going to happen. So what's going to happen is, could he do like some of the others have done that have been there for a while, and they kind of fall toward the back end of that second round? So that's something that they're – so what he's got to be able to do, like I said, he's got to prove that he can run a team from the point guard spot, if that's what you're going to do. And running the team is not going to be him taking shots in bulk, because the thing is, you're not going to – I'm trying to think how to say this. You're not going to play your way in to the bottom by going out and proving that you can score 40 points a game, because a guy like him, that's not what they're looking for. A guy like him who's out of the top 100 is not going to score 40 points a game in the NBA.
Right.
So I don't think that they're worried for a second about how many points he scores. So I hope his attitude is, if I'm going to run this team like a true point guard or the alpha male, I'm going to make everybody else better. I hope that is the attitude, and it's not, all right, how many points can I get? How many shots can I get? And like I said, it's a totally different situation at Texas. So I think it's a Chris Beard's first year. It's a fresh start for him. It's a fresh start for the fans. It's a fresh start for Marcus Carr.
Man, thank you so much. It's been awesome to talk to you. I've really enjoyed our conversation, and I really appreciate everything that you've done for me today, man. And we should do this again sometime. I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Let me know anytime, man. You can FedEx me some brisket.
Sounds good. I'll see if they're allowed to do that. Probably not, but we'll see. We'll see. All right, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Yes,
I really
sir.
appreciate it. There you go. All right, brother. Thank you.